and welcome to my channel. My name is Anya and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing the Hourglass Vanish Stick Foundation. I made a first impression video on this in January or February, I can't really remember. It will be linked in the description box, and it was a massive fail. It looked horrendous on my skin and I was just like, did I just waste a lot of money on this? I said in that video that I was going to do a review after I'd been testing it out a little bit longer. I was hoping this review was going to go up in March, but my health decided it wouldn't. So it's going up now. A quick background on my skin. I am very pale. I have a lot of redness and rosacea on my cheeks, nose and chin for the most part. I also have sensitive and acne prone skin, so I do break out fairly easily. And this year I've been breaking out pretty much non-stop. In various places of my face. I can't really figure out what's causing it. So this got to test both my rosacea as well as breakouts, because I find those to be two different types of redness in terms of coverage in foundation and concealers. Because I find that breakouts are, for the most part for me, easier to cover with foundation and concealer than my rosacea. But I wanted to see this because I've heard a lot of good things about this on YouTube a couple of years ago, because this is not a new product, it's not even new to me. I've had it for a year plus. I'm just now getting around to properly using it. And what I want in a foundation is something that's going to cover my redness, that is going to not emphasize texture and dryness, because I have textured skin as well. I have dry combination skin. I live in a very cold climate, so my skin gets very dry in the winter but then gets oilier towards the summer, I should say. But I do have issues with dry spots and texture and stuff. It's just how my skin is, and what I'm looking for in a base product is something that's going to cover my redness, that is not going to emphasize any dryness or texture, and that it's just going to sit on my skin nicely. I also would love it for it to give me 8 hours of wear without breaking down. I don't mind it starting to look shiny after a couple of hours. Most things do that on me. It's not really a deal breaker, I kind of like how it looks, but I do want it to last for a couple of hours. This is an expensive foundation. Hourglass as a brand is a very expensive brand. This costs $46 US on their website. It is 7.2 grams of product in here. It comes in 32 shades and it's vegan. They say it is waterproof, medium to full coverage, buildable, and it should give you 12 hours of wear. It is a triangular one and it twists up and down. I knew from reviews that this didn't really come with a whole lot of product compared to like liquid foundations, but I also don't think comparing a stick to a liquid is the right way to do, because they are two completely different formulations, and I find that with stick foundations you usually do need less product. When it comes to some of the claims of this, I don't agree with Hourglass. I have written down notes for myself, so I'm just going to read what their claims are. This claims to be full coverage with minimum amount of product, because it is a concentrated formula made with double the amount of pigment. I don't agree with that. To me, this is light coverage when I apply it like they say to apply it, and I can get it to near full coverage by building it up. It's not full coverage right away. They say you can use it to get anything from sheer to full coverage. I do agree with that. It will adjust to your body temperature and blend effortlessly into the skin. I don't 100% agree with that. Most things are going to adjust to your body temperature when you put it on your skin, and most products are going to want to sort of mesh with it, and the more they mesh and sort of sink and sort of settle, the less transfer you're going to get if you touch your face. They also claim it is a long wearing formulation, giving you 12 hours of wear, and that it's waterproof. When it comes to 12 hours of wear, I haven't tested it for 12 hours. I rarely wear makeup longer than 8, so for me, I am not going to go out of my way to test it for 12 hours because it's gonna ruin my day. But I will say it lasts for 8. It lasts also for 10. I tested it for 10 one day. I didn't believe their waterproof claim on this first, because this has a, I'm not gonna say emollient, but it's kind of like thick and sort of tacky, and on my skin it doesn't set on its own. I need to physically set this with a powder, otherwise it's going to come off when I touch my face, and that made me sort of doubt that it was going to be waterproof. But I was wearing this one day when I got my hair washed. I have home health care, and one of the things that they do for me is wash my hair, because I physically can't stand up with my hands for that long. I say stand, sit in the bath. And I was wearing this once when that was done, or maybe my mum was washing my hair that day, I can't remember, but I was wearing it and my hair got washed and it stayed on. So Waterproof, check. I'm gonna give it that, it is waterproof. When it comes to application, my favourite way to apply it is with a sponge, hands down. I find that this product applied with a brush emphasises texture a lot, to the point where it's unwearable. I couldn't wear it because it just looked atrocious. It emphasises texture, dryness, it doesn't build to full coverage. With the brush I can't get it to full coverage, I can get it to like medium, high, medium, but with the amount of texture it shows through, it's not worth it. I have to leave it at light if I want it to look wearable, otherwise the texture is just too emphasised. With my fingers it's fine, again can't get it to full coverage but I can get it to high, medium, and it looks better than with a brush. I find that it's easy to blend with my fingers, both in terms of both sort of dragging it, but also like I tend to pat my skin when I put it on with my fingers. I find that to be the best way to get coverage, and it works sort of okay for that. It does still emphasise texture, and as I said, it doesn't get me full coverage, but it is wearable. With a sponge, I like it the best. It doesn't emphasise as much texture. I find that it blends easy with a sponge, and it looks the most natural and skin-like. I think part of that is because a sponge will suck up a little bit of product because it is a sponge, and I just find that that makes it look much nicer on the skin. It still is going to emphasise a little bit of texture and dryness, but not nearly as much as with the other two ways of application. Back to the claims and what I think about them. I've sort of briefly gone over this, but their claim, full coverage with minimal product. No. With a layer I get light medium coverage, which can be wearable. I don't necessarily mind that, but as a product that claims to be full coverage with minimum amount of product used, I don't really like that. On their website they have like, this is how you apply it to your face, kind of this is how you use it to get high coverage, and I do that and I get light coverage. I have to layer it usually 2 to 3 times to get anywhere near full coverage, and I wouldn't say on me that this is full coverage. The most full coverage product I've tried is Remarkable foundation from Marc Jacobs. That covers everything with the tiniest amount of product. This does not, and this doesn't even come up to that level of coverage when I've layered it. So for me it's not full coverage, but I can, you know, I can get it to a high coverage if I want to. Waterproof, as I said, it is waterproof, but if you do rub your face, it is going to come off. It doesn't set on my skin, and I have that issue with a lot of foundations where I will see other people talk about them on YouTube, and they talk about giving it a couple of minutes to like set so that they can blend powder products on top, and I never have that happen to me. It doesn't set down on my skin, and if I touch my face it comes off. Even if I set it with powder and setting spray and then like rub my face, it's going to come off. This to me just sits on top of the skin, so it's just, I don't like that part about it. I am used to that part about makeup because most foundations doesn't set on me. I think I've found like 2 that do. 12 hours of coverage. I haven't tested it for 12, I don't wear makeup for 12, but I will say that it looks good after a couple of hours. Right when I put this on, for the most part it looks dry and it looks a little bit heavy and cakey, and after a couple of hours it looks better. It started to sort of get a little bit of my natural like dewy shine coming through with the oil that my skin produces, but I also think it just has warmed up to the skin a little bit better, and it looks better. It looks not as dry, not as heavy, and I don't mind that part. I have that with most stick foundations that I've tried, where they won't look like amazing right after I've used them, but after a couple of hours it looks much better, and this is definitely the case with this. But it holds up fairly decent at the 8-hour mark as well. I do start looking shiny about 6 hours in, but for me I don't mind that. If I feel like blotting I will blot. Sometimes I will like gently powder my face with like the tiniest amount if it is too much and I have things to do, but most of the time I just leave my face if it gets shiny because I can't be asked to fix it. And even though I do get shiny with this after like 6-8 hours, it doesn't break the foundation down, which was something that I actually expected it to do because of how this sits on the skin. Effortlessly blends into the skin, they say. Yeah, I will say, well, it kind of does. It blends in fairly nicely and easily. It doesn't drag on the skin, it goes easy, sort of, it spreads easy both with my fingers, a brush and a sponge, and I'm most surprised about the sponge because I find that with that I don't drag as much, but it still spreads easily, blends easily, and I find it to blend very easily. It does emphasise texture on me though, which is one of the reasons I'm not a fan of it. But overall, I will say that it does blend easily. It just doesn't blend nicely. It doesn't look nice when it's done. And then we have the pros and cons for me. And this is subjective. This is how it looks on my skin. For me, this is not worth the money. I also would not repurchase this unless my skin does a 180 and changes completely, because it emphasizes texture too much. That's my main thing. The pros for this is that the colour does work well. Right now it looks very pale and I have used bronzer, but for me the colour is pale enough. It's just that the undertone is wrong. This is more of a cool toned undertone and I have more of a neutral, so it looks lighter than it is, but with a powder it does look fairly well matched. One of the things that I discovered with this is that this is an amazing under eye concealer. I have lines underneath my eyes and I've had that for years, and concealer will sit in those lines and sometimes they will crease. This is one of the best products I've used under my eyes to cover blueness and stuff with like zero creasing. It will settle into the lines. Everything will do that because that's just how my skin is, but it doesn't crease and it stays looking amazing all day. All day. It looks flawless. I kind of wish it would have looked like that all over my skin the way it does under my eyes, because it looks amazing and I really like it. It is waterproof, which for me is a pro. I am someone who sweats very easily and spill things on myself a lot. So for me, that it is waterproof means that it's also most of the time more long wearing. It also means it's going to hold up if it gets hot outside. So for me, being waterproof is a pro. It wears well on my skin. It doesn't break down. It starts looking a little shiny after a couple of hours, but it doesn't break down. And as I said, it looks its best after about 2 hours on my skin and for the next like 4 to 6 hours. Cons. The biggest one for me is that it emphasizes pores, texture, dryness, hair, everything that you don't want emphasized, this will emphasize it. It even emphasizes the texture that I didn't even know was there, the dryness that wasn't visible. It looks atrocious, and in application it's not going to be super visible when I apply it with a sponge, but it's very visible when I apply it with a brush. It's my least favourite thing to do. I rarely apply foundation with a brush as is, because I find that it does emphasise texture on my skin no matter what foundation I use. So I prefer to use either my fingers or a sponge. And I will say it doesn't look as bad with my fingers or a sponge, but it still emphasises texture, and it emphasises too much texture for me to be happy wearing it. I will say that now, I'm filming this in the beginning of July, I will say that this looks better on me now than it did a couple of months ago. It blends easier into the skin, it doesn't emphasise as much texture, it looks more natural, and I think a lot of that has to do with the weather. It's not as cold here anymore, so my skin isn't as dry, so that's a plus. It means that I'm going to be able to wear it more when it gets warmer. The downside is that this then makes me look like a ghost, but I can deal with that. Another con for me is that it sits on top of the skin. It doesn't settle or sink in, it just stays there like paint, and if you touch his face it comes off. For me, I've also put a con on the fact that this doesn't give me near full coverage on one layer. I actually have to layer it 2 to 3 times to get to full coverage, and the areas that I want the coverage are the areas I don't want to layer this, because those are usually also the areas where I have texture, and the more product I put on top of the areas where I have texture, the worse it looks. So for me, this is just overall not a foundation that works, sadly. I'm kind of happy to have tried it. I wanted to know what the hype was about. I'm a couple of years late, but you know, it's fine. But it didn't work for me. It was just too dry. I think that was everything I wanted to say for this review. If you've tried it, let me know what you think of it down in the comment section below. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!